Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is Friday, November the 12th, 2021, and we have a powerful show coming for you today with our very own somebody who is not a stranger to the community, but we will introduce him to some. That is Brother Ini-Herit. Shawn P is in the building. He has released a new text titled What SARS-CoV2 Taught Me. And we're going to discuss the motivations and inspiration and the content of this text. And if you don't know, he's with the Mosi Warrior Clan and part of the Kofi Pasai research team. And so we'll probably delve a little bit into his life as well. And so, all that and more when we return in just a moment. And we are back again. Sorry for all the craziness in the background. I'm in the middle of rearranging some things in here. So there's yoga mats and dollies and all kind of books and everything scattered in the place. But that's not going to stop us from doing what we do here on this channel, and that is provide you with very compelling and interesting guests. And we talk about all kinds of things from African history to technology, music. And today we're going to talk a little bit about biology and viruses and the whole nine. But before we do, just always have a few announcements. First and foremost, I have released my latest text here, which is Chiluba Maweja, Yoruba Orisha, an ancient Egyptian Ak, an exploratory etymological study. Here I make the argument that the name for deity among the Chiluba speakers of the Democratic Republic of Congo is cognate with the Yoruba word for divinity, Orisha, and it is cognate as well with the word Ak. But there's more in this book, and I also deal with Osiris, I also deal with Amen, and even the god Ra. You'd be surprised that the god Ra is just a variant word of the word Orisha. Want to know more? Go to maduandelapress.com and get your copy of the book. And while you're there, check out the latest from Dr. Chilemalema Mukinge, Muntu Wine Zombie, Portrait of Human as God's Special Creation. We recently interviewed him, so I also encourage you to go back and check that interview out. And, learn a bit more about African spirituality, which we call Kimoyo here, and especially among the Luba people in the Democratic Republic of Congo. A very, very powerful piece. This is the first book on Madhu Andela Press that is external to myself. Some other texts from Dr. Bilolo, Dr. Nsapa is on the way, and even Dr. Soy Kita. So more on that in the future, but make sure you visit the website of maduandelapress.com and get your copy. And if you don't know by now, I have been a part of a documentary film called Hoppy, how economics is the foundation and the basis of culture. And there were a number of outstanding scholars who were a part of this film also. And some of those scholars have been assembled. And Brother Taki, who is the producer, the main producer of the film, uh, is putting together a tour, the Returning to the Source tour in Egypt in February of 2022. And there will be a conference during that time. And on the conference will be Professor James Smalls, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, and his wife will also be there, Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, Brother Anthony T. Browder, Dr. Solange Asprey, Dr. Wade Nobles, and his wife will also be there, Brother Mfudishi Jehuti Mess, and Dr. Teofilo Benga will be there. And so if you want to know more about this conference and this tour, is known as the Aket Tour, you can go to akettours.com. And if you can't see that at the bottom of the flyer, here is the link, akettours.com. And while I am there, of course, I will be there as well. While I am there, I will be shooting for our documentary film titled Chiena Into, where we will be exploring the relationship between ancient Nile Valley civilizations of Meroe and ancient Kemet, with that of the modern Bantu-speaking cultures of Central, Southern, and Eastern Africa. And we intend to make this a series. So then we're going to move to West Africa from Lake Chad on west. And so if you want to contribute to the film, you can do so in many different ways. The website should be coming up this Monday, and I'll let y'all know more about that when it happens. But in the meantime, you can join our Patreon page. That is patreon.com/asarimhotep. And you can join the movement there or make a donation at asarimhotep.com. And so I will be presenting more information about the film, our goals and our needs. And so we would, love your support and spread the word about that. And I think that is it for the announcements today. So without delay, first and foremost, I want to shout out everyone who has made their presence known in the chat room. Brother Chavez is in the building. Sister LaDosha Wright is in the building. Zane Montego is in the building. Alexander Davenport is in the building. Miss Nonya Meko, if I'm saying that correctly, is in the building. And of course, all of you on Facebook who are watching live, and for some reason y'all tags can't come up on this StreamYard platform. I recognize y'all and thank you all for joining us this evening. And of course, those of you who are watching but have not made yourselves known in the chat. And so, again, we have our good brother, Ini-Herit Shawn P, in the building from the Mosi Warrior Clan. And he has written this text here with SARS-CoV2 or COVID-2 version 2 taught me. And so we're going to find out exactly what did the virus teach our good brother in the Mosi Warrior Clan, and why he decided to, write a book when he could have been at the club brushing up on some sisters and all that good stuff. And so without further ado, I want to welcome our good brother, Ini-Herit Shawn P. What's good, fam?
ETM Hotel, Rennie Shawn. Welcome to Peace. My name is Shawn. I'd like to thank Asar for having me on today. And you're right, I could have been anywhere, man, but me being me.
You know, as a person who has written some books, that's time consuming. You know, people don't appreciate the amount of time and effort and resources go into putting together a book. So, you know, this looks like a labor of love, and we're gonna figure out, you know, why we didn't have this sooner, because we know there's a lot of pseudoisms running around on these internet streets that you
Yeah.
and the crew have been fighting against. And so we're going to get into that a little bit later. But before we go there, so this is you've been on the program before, but
Mm-hmm.
just in our community talks. So this is kind of the first formal, you know, just one-on-one interview. So that being the case, can you just, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are from, how did you get interested in the subjects that you're interested in, and how did you get introduced to the Mosi Warrior clan, and how did you get a part of that?
Absolutely. Well, my name is Shawn. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. Born and
Mhm.
raised. Um, I've been in this thing since probably about 2014, 2015, where I met Sebu Jawu and actually Black Panther first. And Black Panther, he got me into the Amara Squad group, and I would later meet in a Metanetra group, Sebu Jawu. So just kind of going through that whole flow and feel of coming into new knowledge and new information. I got an opportunity to actually not jump off the deep end like most people do, and pretty much focus on, like, okay, seeing who had the correct information and or how to get to that particular information. But I was always a writer. I've been a writer since I was a kid. I used to write all kind of things, poetry, letters. It didn't matter. You know what I mean? I was writing or I was drawing. So
Mm.
I had a short attention span in school. So I would doodle a lot while the teacher's teaching, and my mind would go somewhere else. So I just started drawing whatever came to my mind while the teacher was teaching. I used to get in trouble for drawing on my homework papers and all of that stuff too. So, that was kind of the thing. But I just wasn't paying too much attention, I suppose. However, just writing led me to where we are today. I met Naya. Actually, I was encouraged to write long before I started writing for Voices of Fire, um, and that just that was motivation. But everything transpired right then and there. But as far as really putting pen to pad, you had to first develop some type of methodology or core understanding. So you would have to read a lot and understand a lot before you actually just dive off the deep end and know how to put things together.
Mhm.
So by buying, purchasing your works, seeing your mannerisms and behaviors, Sabu Jawu's works, just the Amara Squad collectively, and other, the ancestors' works, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, John G. Jackson, Chancellor Williams, uh, Theophilo Banga, Sheikh Antijoke, seeing that collective body of work allowed me to be able to understand what it is that I really wanted to do. And I just had some inspiration behind it, man, because I wanted to outlive, I wanted my name or whatever to outlive me, because I know
Mhm.
one day I won't be here forever, but, I wanted to contribute.
Indeed, indeed, and a fruitful contribution this is as well. And
Appreciate it.
so, again, the text is titled "What SARS-CoV-2 Taught Me," and so I'll just get right into it. You know, what is the book about, and what was the motivations behind the publishing of this text?
Well, the actual conversation about vaccines and started 2 years ago. Well, yeah, about 2 years ago, roughly, around April, on Dagger Squad, another YouTube channel, with Brother Garfield, and he has a host of people on, and he can do 15-hour shows a day. So all kind of topics will be covered in that time span, and just people's misconceptions of vaccines, vaccine science, vaccine court systems, and things of that nature. So that was really my introductory into, kind of making sure that I was prepared to present any information on that. And I did that on the Dagger Squad channel actually twice. And then later on in the year, as things began to progress, new knowledge about small breakouts were like MMR in Brooklyn appeared. Then you had Samoa's incident appear right before Unc's taking many debates with other people. And the discussion is furthering along in the community because, it takes certain topics in the community to build up before it catches some steam toward the end of the year. The next thing you know, there's some live debate. Well, that kind of transpired into that. So you're just trying to just iron out, right? Little things that you didn't know about, just continuing to advance science, new knowledge, always advancing it. Those things start to matriculate into the instance of that. And then lo and behold, 2019, Unc takes the debate. Not even a week after that, we hear about this new virus that comes out. And then all of a sudden it's just sweeping across the country come February, March, and then you have it. So that whole process leading into December just kind of transpired that and encouraged more studying, more research, more learning, more patience in the area.
I see. So essentially, because of the various misconceptions in the what we call the quote unquote conscious community,
Right.
and the resistance to the serious study of the subject, as well as getting the vaccine, all of these contribute to, let me put these best ideas together in a way, I'm assuming in a way that the general public can understand, and so that we can dispel some of the myths that are going on in the community. Am I summing
Absolutely.
that up? All right.
Absolutely. That would be the process. So first we had to understand what was the real pushback in the community outside of just being misinformed. That a lot of the information that we get, if it's not measured twice and cut once, it's cut as soon as it gets it, and it's retweeted, reshared, rehashed, over and over and over. So it gets around the world way before the truth does, as Corey would say. So that was instrumental. But now it's about, and I think it's always about something that Unc the whole squad says, but Unc is a well-organized lie defeats a disorganized truth every time. So it began to be about organizing the truth and putting it in a way that the layman could digest it. And even though you get a little technical in there in some areas, but just being able to make that effort and to encourage it to go further. So absolutely, as the noise got louder and the arguments continued or pursued on a day-to-day basis, I needed to not argue as much and do something else that would prevent that. And the inspiration behind the book was influenced by that.
Indeed. Now, before we start getting into the chapters, the title of the text is "What SARS-CoV-2 Taught Me." So the next logical question is, what did it teach you? in summary.
Yeah,
what have
in
you
summary,
learned about the virus, or what, I mean, what has the virus as a teacher taught you?
Right. The
And
virus,
good.
the virus as that's a great question. The virus as a teacher taught me to understand it better,
Hmm.
understand your immune system, understand how viruses transmit and spread, what damages or potential threats viruses have on the human body and lingering effects thereafter. Um, I really never paid attention to what it meant for for you to clear a virus. Like what was the shedding period of a virus, or AKA quarantine? How long did a person need to quarantine? All of these things that people didn't think about until SARS-CoV-2 appeared.
Hmm.
You started it started to say, "No, look, you need to learn me," and this was the first great opportunity for us, especially science enthusiasts, to watch in real time, watch the scientific method work in real time. It was like a worldwide experiment happening before your eyes. The collection of data, the the immense amount of data that actually pursued that was just readily available to you, which wouldn't have been available to us any other time in our time.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was a big lesson. Like this thing was killing people too quick. People didn't know what it was, didn't know how to identify any of the symptoms. We didn't know these little things. What worked, what doesn't work, what's stopping death, what is it was so many questions. And just from being a researcher and just from trying to display proper research methodology, you have so many questions and everything starts right there. And I think that, so what SARS-CoV-2 taught me was like, look, you need to know me first.
Indeed,
Forget it.
indeed. So it's like people not respecting, well, several things,
Hmm.
not understanding nature. And this is what shocks me the most, is that you have a lot of people uh who claim to be uh at least African centered in their thinking.
Hmm.
And one of the main tropes is that they're being one with nature and understanding nature. But when it comes to this virus, they don't want to study nature and
Yeah,
what it is, uh and like to make up some things. And so I guess part of the conversation is that people, there are certain people who are anti-vaccine primarily because of just the existence of who we call white people and
hmm,
their history with African people, and the relationship not being one of trust and of goodwill. And so they use that history to rebel against the concept of a vaccine. And because of course we can't trust them, they're the ones who created it. And they're just trying to eliminate us off the planet by taking it. Has this been a general uh issue that you come across in your discussions?
absolutely. You hear things like that, controlling the population, a lot, and people's misconceptions of that, or the misuse of AKA Tuskegee. But that whole thing is, and behind that they put Bill Gates as the corporate of it. So they give Bill Gates the power and the audacity to come up with a plan to make black people go extinct behind a vaccine. And that's, that takes you back a little bit. Like, wait a minute, why, first of all, why are we empowering Bill Gates with this ability? Do we even understand what he's even doing? And so yeah, that it takes you all the way back. And that's one of that's another motivation behind it, was pretty much the whole control the population, because people didn't understand there has always, before inoculations and vaccinations, which is the evolution of inoculations, the world didn't know how to handle pathogens or these or aka these viruses that plague people, because you can't see these things. This is the invisible killer. And yeah, so that was kind of crazy.
So, the virus would technically be a spirit,
Right.
and in ancient times, but you can see these spirits, but they don't like them spirits. They like the other kind that they really can't see, and that they want to have a conversation with,
Mm-hmm.
and leave offerings in the corner for. But yeah, that's interesting unto itself. So I'm just going to skip around a couple of titles of some of the chapters here.
Okay.
So, of course, we'll start off with the forward. So our good brother Unc West wrote the
Mm-hmm.
forward. And so, anybody familiar with brother Unc West, the founder or one of the founders of the Amon-Ra Squad, and now the Pseudo Killers, and I believe he had a hand in the Mosi warrior clan too.
Mm-hmm.
These
Yeah.
different groups, but he's doing this thing with the Pseudo Killer. So for a while now, and I was in that New York debate, dealing with
Right.
these crazies. Uh,
I
and
learned a lot from that
the
too.
answer. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, I've been in enough debates in my time to just know when something is just, one, if it's just rigged, against you,
Mm-hmm.
and then to what it means to have a true logical conversation with individuals, and then those who are just lost and gone. And it's interesting that you really don't see too many, uh, at least of those, at least I haven't, like those who were there were just who were loud and wrong, just as loud as they were back then when it comes to this particular virus. And I wonder what the health is of everybody who was taking in what's their argument, in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
virus, like if it's fake. Because you know we went through a whole period of the virus itself was caused by the 5G towers,
Right.
and that went away for a little bit, and I'm pretty sure as soon as the sixth generation of cell phone towers hits, that's gonna calls for something else. And
Mm-hmm.
but our good brother Unc has wrote the forward to this text, and and he's always, of course, been a great advocate for scientific literacy, and he's been fighting the good fight in trying to convince the general public, especially in our community, to understand the nature of the virus, this COVID-19 in particular, but just science in general, and pathogens, and the history of treatment and the like. So it's good to see him in this text. And then, of course, there's the introduction and viruses. So what did you learn about viruses in general? What is a virus, and why
Right.
is this? Why can't we just take some herbs and meditate and get rid of these damn viruses?
Well, we can't take the herbs to get rid of viruses, because there's no herb that knows how to respond to something it's never encountered before.
Mm-hmm.
And our immune systems, which is the following chapters, can't recognize that either. Therefore, it's not causing an immune response to defend itself against a foreign pathogen, especially a novel virus. But basically, viruses are, pretty much a microscopic and infectious obligated parasite, or what we want to call a host cell. So you have to understand what they are. They've been here for millions upon millions of years. They've existed in different variations. And we encounter new viruses the more we overpopulate specific areas. And I try to give people an example of how we even get to this point all the time by saying, like, let's say in your city where you used to live, and you lived in the inner city, and then people get out to the suburbs a little bit, they start developing new residents and knocking down and mowing down trees and uninhabited lands before. Those are risky opportunities for encountering a virus because it's undisturbed. It's been in its own environment for so long with no, basically a human. Now, viruses aren't alive, they aren't dead, but they need a host to survive. And knowing that should help people understand what they are in general.
So
So
basically,
taking
they're zombies. They're
right,
biological zombies. The
right,
the
absolutely.
the undead.
That's a
But
good,
go ahead.
yeah,
I'm
that's a
sorry.
good way to put it. No, that's a good way.
Mhm.
Yeah. The undead. And so because of that, knowing what they are and how they behave, now you can understand, well, how do our immune system reacts to those? And most people don't know that we inhale 6 liters of viruses every time that we take a deep breath. And so what's the big deal? Some people, well, what's the big deal if we do that? Well, a lot of the viruses that we inhale every time we take that deep breath are good for us, are healthy for us. But then you have those rare viruses that are detrimental to us. And so then after you pretty much understand what a virus is and now how it needs a host, you need to understand what are the ways a virus would attack you and how it can invade or compromise your body. And so with SARS, and I keep saying this, with SARS-CoV-2, people kept calling it the virus COVID-19. COVID-19 is the disease. The virus is SARS-CoV-2. So that misconception was one of the main things that I set out to help clear the air on, because our people kept referring to the virus as a disease when it's the other way around.
I see. And another misconception, besides the herbs, is that they could just fight off the disease by a preemptive strike by boosting their immune system.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with more herbs, some vitamin C, and then they'll talk about some whatever plants and all this. And it's funny because you can't boost your immune system. The only way you can boost your immune system is if it is already compromised and low, active in terms of it. So you're literally boosting it back to a certain. But if it's already at its peak, you can't make it Hulk and your immune
Right.
system now is Hulk smashing, all the viruses that are
Mm-hmm.
interacting with your body. And what people don't know is, like, without viruses, we wouldn't be alive. But I think
Right.
what's also important is to the larger discussion of not just viruses and bacteria and things of that nature, is to understand that although our body looks whole, is really a biological Voltron of various different living entities and organisms that are
Mm-hmm.
bound together to preserve this particular life uh as much as possible until it expires. So you have those good viruses, you have those good bacterias, etc. And all things must eat, and so you have to provide for those entities to live, to help the overall organism live. But then there are entities that have not evolved in a way that natural selection deems it beneficial, saying to this system of living organisms that make up our individual body. And
Mm-hmm.
those conflicts of interest, for a lack of a better phrase, um, is what causes the diseases. And so part of this study of the viruses and things is really going into your second chapter, a
Mm-hmm.
real understanding of the nature of what is the immune system, and what all is involved in that process. And so can you tell us a little bit more about the role of the immune system, and
Right.
what is it capable of doing? And then if you have an example of when that system just cannot fight off what happens in the process.
Absolutely. In the second chapter, dealing with the immune system, I found this to be very interesting because right after we learn what viruses are, how they behave, and things of that nature, and what's going on with that, now you have to figure out, okay, well, how do I respond? Right? How does my body respond to encountering this? So we've learned over time. Um, how our body responds to certain viruses. They attack us and then we get sick. And when we get sick and we're weak, what's happening is, and you mentioned it earlier, our immune system is at its weakest point. And now it's taking it time to rebuild itself. Because if you catch the virus and then it transfers over, let's just use the word transfers over into a disease state, you get really sick. And for instance, you're in bed a few days, you're sweating, you're coughing, you're throwing up. You're doing all of those things because your body's trying to get rid of that foreign pathogen that just invaded you. So and in that, the immune system is trying to mount a response, and that's the reaction the immune system gives you when you get sick. And the sweating and things of that nature is actually a good thing. And it's showing that your immune system is actually working. So in the case of SARS-CoV-2, when we encounter that and COVID-19 begins to invade and take us over, and your immune system works differently from that because it's never seen it before. It's not like all the other stuff. It's never seen it before. So this is a whole novel journey. It takes that time. It weakens. Well, some people, they say, well, I was pretty much asymptomatic, or I didn't really have any responses. I was just down for a couple of days. That's your immune system fighting off that asymptomatic response. But we what we now know is that 36% of the asymptomatic crowd was not developing any type of immune response to the virus, and therefore stood a chance of doubling their cases of reinfection.
Mm.
So when we slowed it down, when we slowed it down and we start to just look at immunology on a basic level, we knew that, all right, how could we strengthen the immune system? Right? Everybody says it. Well, you could eat healthy, you could exercise, you can go to sleep, you can do all of the things that people often take your supplements and do all of those things. But your immune system is not trained to defend itself against anything foreign. You can only, and I like to throw this out here because this is where Nahisi comes into play. He was like, you can't boost your immune system. And as you stated earlier, only when it's weakened you can only get it back up, strengthen it. And he said, just use the word strengthen your immune system. And even in strengthening, we're still susceptible of being of catching SARS-CoV, being infected by SARS-CoV-2 and catching the disease. It's simple as that. But the immune system began to be complicated. And you said an example of this is what happens when you're immunocompromised, or you experience you have more than one disease already. Like for instance, you got high blood pressure, right? And you're diabetic. How does that affect you when you encounter a virus? That puts you at risk, at a higher risk, because your immune system, you're immunocompromised. You can't gain any type of protection from a natural infection or a vaccination. So one of the safest ways and the fastest way to strengthen and boost, and I'm jumping back and forth real quick, to strengthen your immune system and mount some protection is a vaccination. Okay, it's safer, it's less risky, and you're not playing with your life. It's not Russian roulette with this virus per se. But when you're immunocompromised and you can't mount any type of response, some people have to encounter 2, 3, 4 vaccines to see if they even do that. And even still, there's other measures. So they have to live in you have to live in a bubble, meaning the people around you and the activities that you do, you have to know that you're around people that are fully vaccinated and that can help you in those instances, so that you're not susceptible of that. But you still got to take other precautions. You might see immunocompromised people wearing gloves while they're shopping. You might see them with 2 masks on, right? And you can pretty much tell that. So because they know that they're at risk. So those are the things that, just understanding the immune system and how this virus attacks you, you have to know. And I think that in the community, we just know about the immune system, but we don't know the parts of the immune system and how they operate, whether it's adaptive, whether it's innate, and otherwise. Like, people can't tell you that. They'll say, well, I'm going to take these herbs. Well, the herbs aren't recognizing the spike protein. And which is the spike protein is what is encountering, it's finding its way inside the cell. And then that's where it gets complicated. Because as soon as it's introduced into the cell, it's using your body or your immune system against you to replicate the virus in you and attack you further. And you don't know how long it'll take you to clear the virus.
Exactly. And for those of you who are just joining us, we are here with the author, Brother Shawn P., aka Ini-Herit, from the Mosi Warrior Clan, the Mosi Warrior Clan. And we are discussing his latest book, What SARS-CoV2 Has Taught Me. Let me put it on the screen. Oops, sorry. So that you can see the text. And while y'all are here, I'm going to need each and every one of you to That is right. We need y'all to hit the likes. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure that you subscribe. We are on our way to 10,000 subscribers. And so we want to be very disrespectful in these YouTube streets by bringing you all this powerful information from African scholars and researchers and artists and musicians and some non-Black folks. We don't discriminate here, but this is primarily the platform for our people to get this good information out. So with that being said, I think about the immune system like in a way that for example, I forgot the young white dude's name who went into the church and shot up and killed 9 of
Oh
the
yeah, in
parents.
South Carolina.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't
and
think of his name.
yeah, I forgot his name, but
Was it
many of
Dylan
us
Ruth or
remember that.
something crazy like
Yeah,
that?
Dylan Roof. I think that's him. And so when you think about, for example, the when the virus, if you think of him as a virus coming into the church, those parishioners were not uh able to recognize him as a threat. And even if they did not have a strategy in place in order to counter uh said, virus, being Mr.
Mhm.
Dylan Roof. And so he was able to come in and wreak havoc on the church. Versus, for example, and I forgot the church here, but because I live in Philly, but I'm currently in Texas right now. And there's a church out in Texas where a gunman was in the church and decided he was going to try to do his own mass killing. However, with this being Texas, you know, parishioners carry guns, even in the church. So he got one round off, but the other parishioners, were able to put him down because they carry guns. In other words, if we're using this as an analogy, when one obviously, they've had some experience of something in the past where there's like, you know what, we need to carry guns with us even in church. And
Mhm.
here's an incident where they was able to recognize the threat and to attack it before it did more damage. Whereas in the incident with Dylan Roof, they were unprepared. And so
Mhm.
the immune system had not been, trained to recognize and be able to fight off that virus. And so more damage was done. And so it's not necessary that the immune system was weak. It just didn't have a means to defend itself. But now
Mhm.
that the situation has happened, now different steps have been put in place. Maybe we have to check everybody, coming in the door. Now we got a security guard, an armed security guard that's in the church, and maybe one out in the parking lot, for something to happen. They learn from the experience. And so now when a situation presents itself, they're better able to address the threat and neutralize the threat. And in many ways, this is the issue with our immune system. And so these are kind of real life examples that can give us a semblance, if we want to make an analogetic word that I just made up, comparison, between the two. And I think that's something that we really need to get into as a culture, and really understanding the nature of our bodies, because this discussion goes beyond the the virus itself, because now it comes into play that just how our overall health and striving to eat and exercise and putting the right things in our body can aid our immune system to be able to fight off. And so we don't want to continue to eat unhealthy things that just put our overall health in compromise, because as you mentioned earlier, regardless of the immune system, you have stuff like high blood pressure and heart disease. A lot of the people who were dying were people who were overweight, and
Mm-hmm.
and things of this nature, because it attacks or something happens to the lungs to where you can't breathe.
Right.
And if you already, have a hard time breathing because of, your
Oh,
weight and
wait.
things,
Mm-hmm.
it just makes it that much harder for you to be able to fight off, this particular disease. So the what what SARS-CoV-2 has taught me is to consider my health a bit more, especially since I'm in my 40s and I'm reaching that age where like the virus is affecting people my age and older
Right.
in a very real way, more than, folks who are really young and can fight off these things a lot better. And so, with that said, I'm going to skip to, what was that chapter? I lost my page. And so the evolution of the vaccine, the evolution of vaccine science and the creation of COVID-19 mRNA vaccines. So one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that, and part of the mythology is like, well, they came up with a vaccine real quick. The virus just came out last weekend, and we already got a vaccine, but we ain't got a cure for AIDS and cancer and all this other kind of stuff. How the hell did we get a vaccine for this so
Right.
fast? So what have you learned about the evolution of vaccines in general,
Mm-hmm.
and answering that question in terms of how did we get a vaccine seemingly so fast, in recent times, given this the situation that we're in currently now.
Right. So I like the way that you actually posed it, because as the question is a valid question. How did they make it so fast? And this is important for researchers, because that is the first thing that you have to do. Is you have to, that's the main question that you got to set out to answer, so that people can get a clear understanding. And earlier on, it was like, okay, let's start from the beginning. And people didn't know the beginning. So what was the beginning? The beginning is, you had people trying to create ways to stop, quote unquote, plagues and things of that nature. People was, earlier on. So, and I like to use Africa as an example, because we see this practice in many different cultural aspects throughout West Africa, especially where people are linked to next to one another, like among the Yoruba, and then right across, I forget the other name of the people, because they practice something different, but they were real close, but they share the same smallpox deity. And just in that understanding, the what people call witch doctors per se, uh, began to figure out that if they squeezed, right, somebody who died from it, if they made a little leisure, squeezed it, little pus bumps into their skin, rub it in and fixate it with them, that they'll have a small reaction, but then they'll gain some type of protection against it. And when they began to do that, they call that inoculations. It's one of the deadliest ways to actually to gain some or train your immune system to do something. But that is what they had in their earlier onsets. And so in the early development of inoculating, right, once this science is brought to the new world via slave trade, and Jenner and all of those people get involved in that, and they learn in Cotton Mather, and they learned that Onesimus and other enslaved African ancestors were already familiar with inoculations and how to defend themselves against the smallpox. They were in an uproar to learn how to do it. And so they were trying to introduce the smallpox to these Africans, and they were not getting sick, but everybody else was getting sick, and they was calling it Ini-Herit at the time because everybody else, we didn't have it, but everybody else did. Okay,
Mhm.
lo and behold. So you had to go back to that point. And then, of course, science and technology always advances a skill set, right? So
Mhm.
in the development of the first thing that they're trying to do is, what is a safer way to do this? Because we can't just go around making slits in our skins and then injecting pus into our skins. That's a deadly way to introduce our body to that, because they had people that was dying from that early on. The survival rate was not good when doing it that particular way. So they began to advance it and better understand that science through technology and understanding what viruses were in its earlier on in history. And then they started looking for new ways. So now we advanced the inoculation phase to a vaccine. Now, this vaccine was taking the live virus, because at the time they don't have the tools, right? They don't have the tools to weaken the virus to a degree at this particular point, and then injecting it. They found a better survivability rate, and then they got better with it over time. So basically, I'm walking you through from inoculations to first generation vaccines. And then first generation vaccines will come into play, and then second generation vaccines would progress. Second generation vaccines progress, and it would take years. Now, from inoculations to the very first vaccine, it took about 50 years to develop. A lot of time, and a lot of understanding, and a lot of trial and error and things of that nature. Took a lot. But then from that first generation to second generation, it cut down about 20 something years. So now you get the second generation of understanding. They begin to understand that, hey, I can use pretty much the cold virus, adenovirus vector, and then I can manipulate that using variances of other viruses to make a vaccine, and it's safer, right? And because I can weaken that virus with this other instrument that I have, and then I can make these. But now that process would take some time, and then you're looking at 10 to 15 years. So now you went from 50 years to 20 something years to 10 to 15 years, and then the second generation got better, and they cut it down to less than to between 2 and 5 years. Okay. In that whole making, in the last 30 years, mRNA technology was already being researched. It was being researched by many doctors coming from all over the place, and they were steadfast in understanding RNA. Most people don't know this, but you got two different types of viruses. You got a DNA virus, and you got an RNA virus. That takes you back to chapter 1, which we bring that information out. So now you know that there's a DNA virus and the RNA viruses. RNA became a really big deal to scientists. So they were seeing how RNA influenced everything else that was going on. And in that development, they began to do this research, but they didn't have the necessary pieces. It took them literally almost 20 something years to figure out what they needed in order to get to an mRNA vaccine, right? So this was the information people didn't have. They didn't know that this research had been going on for quite some, since the 80s. All right.
So
And lipid.
it's like they say, it took me 20 years to be an overnight success. Like people see somebody that seemingly blew up, but not understanding that they've been grinding for a number of years. And
Right.
so essentially what you're saying is that because the we've learned so much over the last 50 years, we've gotten much more information, the technology has gotten better, and because of that we've shortened the span in which we can create vaccines, possibly, to address, certain ills.
Right.
And so with that being said, and I guess I would really have to kind of ask a biologist or virologist this, is like, why is, this effective, but we haven't found something for, let's say, not AIDS. AIDS is a
Yeah, I know the
disease, but
answer to that. It's
HIV.
HIV. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Go ahead.
The answer to that is that HIV is tricky. HIV can it mutates inside the body so many different times, and it can hide. So if you're trying to create a vaccine, which they have began a phase 1 trial with mRNA technology to solve that, but the small trials was unsuccessful. Um, so they're back to the drawing board to figure that out using mRNA technology. And that is because how tricky and how hideous HIV is. People don't know that, but HIV is not like the typical virus.
Yeah.
It's going to be, it could show up as an example, it could hide in your brain, and then it can come out of your brain and then attack your body, and then it'll go somewhere else and hide. So and it does this very rapidly. It's not a standstill type of a virus. This thing is legitimately moving at rates that no other virus can actually do this. So they have to figure out how to slow it down and counter that. And they felt real positive about the mRNA vaccines because it gives the ability to attack this virus from a different way. And as of right now, because of how tricky it is, it's too elusive to do that. Now, cancer, they got some cancer vaccines out, and they're using mRNA to actually deal with certain cancers and things of that nature. So we've progressed in the cancer area, and hopefully, because Black people, we suffer the most from like these cancers that just so pop up on us at young ages and so forth. We'll be able to get some resolve in that pretty quickly. But that HIV is tricky. It's too tricky of a virus.
Yeah, and from what I remember about my early studies about HIV is that, of course, it attacks it it latches on to RNA, the
Mm-hmm.
ribonucleic acid, but then it turns itself into DNA in certain instances. So, you can't
Yeah.
destroy the virus without destroying your DNA to a certain degree. And then
Yeah.
it's like, given what you said, it's not like our body is built with, a camera system that we
Mm-hmm.
can catch the virus traveling like we can, like the camera in the ATM and in the ring, the door ring
Right.
camera, and we can and so because it's going into these sensitive parts, like, if there's a bullet stuck in your head and there's some
Mm-hmm.
fragments or something like this, they won't operate because of, how delicate that neurological system is. And so when you're talking about trying to introduce something that's going to, try to make its way and find a virus through the brain,
Right.
that's some, yeah, you running a risk of just, you might as well just kill yourself. Go ahead.
Right. And that's why our immune system can't develop any type of immune response to it because of that evasiveness. It's
Hmm.
evading the immune system. Soon as the immune system tries to figure it out, it's mutated and done something else. And I want to
Come on
just
now.
use this as an example. So they had a lady who had HIV who had contracted COVID. She was infected with SARS-CoV2. So she got COVID. She's hospitalized.
Hmm.
36 times the virus mutated in this lady's body.
Hmm.
36 times. 180 days in the hospital. 36
And,
times the virus mutated. And she's already got HIV. So
hmm.
what this is saying is immunocompromised people were susceptible of allowing the virus to adapt and mutate
Hmm.
very rapidly. So if she introduced, right, well, the virus leaves and infects someone else, it is not the same virus that came into this woman's body. So
Exactly.
if it was the alpha variant at the time that she was infected with,
Hmm.
it probably was delta when it left.
Man. And we are here with Brother Shawn P, aka Ini-Herit. And we are talking about his book, What SARS-CoV2 Taught Me. And y'all can purchase the book, and we highly recommend it. Y'all purchase the book at SaveTreeDifferentBranchPublishing.com. And I think he put a link in the chat. And if he hasn't, I'm going to put it in again. So y'all can get the direct link for those of you in the chat. And I will put this, I have the Amazon.com link in the description, but I'll replace it with this link here. So to purchase the book. So make sure that y'all get this book here. And so, given what you just said, this brings up essentially a fundamental aspect of the discussion that, you know, a lot of our Christian and Islamic and then just chakra princesses and that consciousness has rebelled against, and that is this concept of evolution.
Right.
And so you have a chapter that deals with evolution. And let me just find it. Here we go. No, we just dealt with that, the evolution of the vaccine science. So the role of evolution in this whole discussion in general, we just got a little bit of an account, but to, you know, your understanding, what do you understand in terms of evolution itself, and why does, in many respects, what you just said in terms of the virus help to prove the theory of evolution, and could people, you know, part of the reason why we have such misinformation about the virus itself is because there's a lot of people are simultaneously what's the word I'm looking for, rebelling against the concept, refusing to accept, you know, the theory of evolution as a fact of life. And so, you know, if you can give us a little bit about evolution from your understanding, and how understanding that helps us to understand the nature of the virus, and why you know, meditating on your chakras is not going to cure you know, bringing your kundalini and having it exit through the crown chakra is not going to help you in regards to this virus.
Absolutely. Well, because of what I mentioned earlier, adaptation and mutation. Viruses, they go into places and they can adapt to the environment around them, and then once they have adapted to that environment, they will mutate. They will become something outside of itself. Hence the terminology, different variants, alpha, delta, beta, gamma, sigma, all of those different, because they changed the names of the variant namings for whatever reason, but you know, from the original strand. So basically what I'm saying in general is that human evolution shows a similar process, right? If you go look at the hominids, the development of the earliest hominids, all the way till you get to Homo sapiens sapien, right? You see the process of early man evolve. And early man is evolving because they're having to adapt to different climates, different circumstances, and situations. So now they're having, once they adapted, now you're seeing them mutate. They're going from eating leaves and berries to clams and other things, and then they begin to eat meat. So you get a different variation. Meat is adding a different protein and things of that nature to their development. Now their brain size is expanding out and their heads are not as small and able to do certain things. You see them just like the evolution of tool making. You see them go from early rocks to different kind of weaponry later on down the line. All of that is the process of them being able to develop in those situations that they're in. But, you know, coming out of a tree and walking upright, that was a process. Early man wasn't just doing that. You know, so
We were created by the creator with his actual physical hands, and he molded us from the dust of the ground. And we are not connected in any way to those apes in Africa. And all that is just foolishness, what you talking about in these internet streets, allegedly. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. That's funny because you'll see similarity to early Homo sapiens sapiens. And evolution doesn't say we come from monkeys, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't at all. It says we share a common ancestor. Now you can argue about that. Asar has a great reference that he'll point you to. It's called The Inner Fish, right? You got to get that book. It gives you a proper understanding of how this thing transpires over time. And then there's a video out there that's like 3 minutes that shows you the evolutionary process in the video format. However, why we're saying this is because viruses behave in a similar manner as humans have developed over time by adapting and mutating. And you see the correlation. And this is how we know that the evolutionary process is real, because we started off with the Wuhan variant, which was the original variant. And now we're all the way to Delta being the dominant. And then we have Delta Plus. This is in real time. In less than 2 years, we have a variation of 13 different variants that has submerged itself on the human population. And we can't get around them. Now, a lot of those different other variants, I know people are like, well, where are they at? They still exist, ladies and gentlemen. These viruses and these variants, they ain't went anywhere. The thing about it is that we have a large portion of people that have been vaccinated. And so those earlier variants are not as transmissible or as infectious as the dominant strand at the time, which was Alpha and now Delta. And we still know this exists because a lady previously died, an older lady previously died that had contracted the disease, and it took her out. And she had both variants in her body. She was really the first result of having Alpha and Delta in her body. So we see this. And moral of the story is, we, in understanding evolution, can help us also better understand these viruses and how they adapt and mutate in themselves and how they spread, because we didn't believe that this was airborne, right? Remember earlier on, the star said that 5G was spreading it. So we began to be like, okay, if somebody who already got it touch a surface, how long does it stay in the surface? Then we began to see them doing tests on how long it stays in the air. If someone was to cough or sneeze, how far does it travel? And in that, right? And in that, we learned that, and I'm gonna bring this back to this point, immunocompromised people have been susceptible, not at high percentages, but have been susceptible of helping create some of these different, and this is hypothesized by scientists, right? These different variants and things of that nature, because it can come out of their bodies differently than the way it entered. And because they, it's adapting to every human being. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we all do not have the same immune system. Okay. That's why people respond to certain things differently. All right. You catch
God
COVID.
created us all the same from the same pile of dust in the Middle East in Jerusalem. You are playing with this tried and true information.
I hate to
I'm
do
sorry,
that.
go ahead.
I hate to do that, but we don't. So we respond differently. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. My brother, same mother. We come out of the same womb now. This
Mhm.
this boy got a peanut allergy, shellfish allergy. I don't have none of the allergies. He got all of that. He be wheeze. He got asthma. He be wheezing, hawking, coughing, spitting ever since we was kids. I always thought something was wrong with him. So I was very sensitive about my brother. And if you mess with him, I will fight you. And if I lose, I'm gonna fight you again till I win. It is what it is. But you wasn't gonna mess with my brother. And me saying that is a clear example of just using my brother. I knew that he would respond to this virus differently than I would respond to the virus. One, and I'm just gonna put this out here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't eat meat. Okay. I don't eat meat. I fast on Fridays, and all I do is drink some water and I have a smoothie, preferably banana and peanut butter smoothie. That's what I have. And I do it every Friday. I've been doing it for the last 5 years. And I exercise. But I knew when I seen that man that went to the gym 365 days a week and was perfectly healthy, laying on his back and dying from this disease, that it can affect and impact me because he worked out more than me. He ate nothing but leaves. He was straight veggies. None of no meat, no fish, nothing. He was straight veggies. He was very strict in his diet when it came to drinks. He was straight up water, or he was straight up fruit smoothies when he did everything. When I seen that, I said, "Oh nah, this thing different. This ain't these other viruses out here." So that's how I know that this thing was adapting and attacking people differently, and it was mutating along that process. But I saw this, but other people may not know this. This virus and bacteria are some of the easiest ways for us to help us understand evolution,
Mm-hmm.
because we
And
can't
that's
see.
why I'm sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No,
No,
no, no. You
finish.
go ahead.
No, because
Oh, I was.
it brings me to the comment that I have up here. He says, my concern is the technology of instructing the cell to produce a part of the virus, as I guess it's supposed to be applies to it happening naturally, as I guess opposed to it happening naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, I'm telling my age here, but back in the 80s, there was a slew of ninja martial arts films. And one thing that was always noted in the film was that only a ninja can beat a ninja, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And even like if you saw the film New Jack City, there's like, we need a new Jack cop, saying for this new Jack, you know, uh, this new breed of criminal in the personification of Nino Brown. And so it's no different. That's the psychology, even with the early inoculations that was mentioned by Brother Shawn, is that how can you use the virus to fight the virus? Because again, the the immune system has to be able to recognize it and how to fight it. And so it's like if you are in the military and they create a a scenario, or they build a compound. So like before they went to go get bin Laden, they knew his compound. They rebuilt the compound so that the Navy SEALs can come in and know all the different angles and way to fight it. It allows for the immune system to recognize it, know its shape, and what angles and everything to battle this particular disease. You know, saying without, of course, harming the organism. And that's how evolving is not simply the changing of parts, the mutation of parts, is the adaptation in terms of learning and behavior. So by having a vaccine, it helps to train and change the behavior of the entire immune system to fight off this new threat that is going to damage the entire, saying, organism. And you can only do that by recognizing it. So it's like, there are some Black folks that probably looked at this gang of people in white sheets and a hood and thought they were a act or something like this, and that they were harmless. Well, we recognize that no, they are very harmful to the Black community organism. So now, when you have some folks that train to fight it, they see it, recognize like, nah, that ain't beneficial to us. We need to handle this before they get into the city. And that's exactly what it does. So the evolution part is also includes the behavior aspect, how certain things respond to threats and things of that nature. And so I just wanted to put that out there in terms of the actual evolutionary conversation. But I'm sorry, continue.
No, I wanna add on to that a little bit about, well, in regard to his question, because he said this thing is supposed to happen naturally. Well, the natural infection takes longer for you to develop some type of immune response. And I don't know if you caught it earlier, brother, when I said that 36% of the asymptomatic people who have been infected with COVID, they don't develop any type of immune response at all to the virus, which makes them susceptible of reinfection. And reinfections rate, even if you had some mild symptoms, has doubled. You're 2.34 times more likely to be reinfected with the virus. That says a lot. And then, after 180 days or so, the reinfection rates are very common. So the natural way is like taking a revolver, putting a bullet in it, spinning the revolver and putting it to your head and clicking it. You're playing Russian roulette with this. Now, I'm not talking about any other, right? I'm talking specifically about SARS-CoV-2, because you don't know how your immune system may respond. You hear this data about 98% survival rate. Well, we're at 759,000 people dying that have died from SARS-CoV-2 in less than 2 years. It's approaching 2 years, and this is more than the Spanish flu. And this virus in 2 years has killed more people than HIV/AIDS has killed people in America, and that's been out since the 1980s. So that shows you how deadly this particular virus is. And the vaccine prevents hospitalizations and deaths at a clip of 99.98%. So what the vaccine does is it induces an immune response that is safer and it's effective quicker. So and natural infection doesn't teach your immune system how to recognize a spike protein. So that's another thing that I wanted to point out to you for most people that don't fully understand that. The spike protein is what is used, what the virus, which is on the virus. It is how it enters into your cell. So if you know that it's entering your cell using the spike protein, and the vaccine is training your immune system to recognize the spike protein, you're more susceptible at mounting a immune response to defend itself against that foreign pathogen. Whereas naturally, it doesn't. There's no recognition of the spike protein or the RBD, which is the binding receptor. I'm messing it up right now because I got so much on my mind. But the recepting binder domain is what it's called. So the RBD is receptor binding domain. That is if I use my arm, it is this part. If this is the spikes, right? The little fluffy things that we see, and this is the arm that you see on the virus. This particular thing right here is where the variants are created. But right here is where I can use this to enter your cell and infect your cell and cause damage. And then I'm going to use your body against you. But the vaccine says, no, I'm making a wall. You can't use your fingers no more. I'm making a wall. So what else is you going to do? I can defend myself now from that spike. So now my cells are protected. Right. And then we get into other technicalities or arguments when people want to get into mysticisms and things of that nature. And we have to break that down and understand how vaccines work even more.
Indeed, indeed. And before we move on, we want to have one commercial from our sponsor, and that is we are here with Brother Shawn P., who wrote the text, What SARS-CoV2 Taught Me, Mossy Warrior Clan member, Kofi Pasai research team member. And this is the text. And so I'm going to need each and every one of y'all to not buy that Popeye's chicken this weekend, that 16 piece, and make sure that y'all go to Same Tree Different Branch Publishing.com. The full link to the direct text to the book from this page here is in the chat. And again, I'm going to put it in the description after the show. But this is the book, and we have learned a lot in this short conversation. And before we wrap up here, can you tell us how, if we got more questions and want to keep this conversation with you going, where can we go to ask you some questions and things of that nature? Are you on the social media? And if so, where can they find you?
Yes, sir. So I am on social media under Ini-Herit Shawn Calfani. I also have a YouTube page dedicated to a lot of the vaccine conversations, whether it's on the Mossy Warrior Clan, but I've been doing it now on YouTube Science W/Shawn, or really it's Science with Shawn. And the reason that I actually did that is so that I could designate that channel to deal with a lot of misconceptions and deal with latest sciences and things of that nature that we could all learn from. That's pretty much where it is. I know that this particular text, we didn't get into it, but we dealt with I dealt with mysticisms and misinformation in here because there's a lot of regurgitation of those claims. So we put a whole chapter dedicated to help educate people on the origins of those claims and the refutions of those claims in there. So it gets there and it deals with the disinformation or the dirty dozen, which is a 12-member campaign of people that spread all kind of misinformation. And honestly, it's only like 2 Black people that show up on this list of 12. And I don't want to bring them out, but um, they're all over the Instagram streets, which I don't have Instagram. I only got Facebook. So, I put my name and you'll see it if you're on the YouTube side. When I post a link, that is the same name that's on Facebook. And you can find me there. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can. Also, if you go to Same Tree, Different Branch Publishing, at the bottom of every page, there's a pop-up box where you actually can leave your name, subject line or whatever in a comment, and you actually can leave your questions, comments, concerns there. I'll receive them and I can respond to them that way because it shows up to us in an email format, and then I could be able to answer you directly as well. So yeah, that's how you can reach me.
All right. And, again, he's part of the Multi Warrior clan, so they have a number of texts. And this is part of us. I think this is the first one in the series of the Spears of the Masi, a historical survey of the minds of African warrior scholars. You can see this text here. Of course, our brother Black Panther created the Killmonger's Corner journal. This is the second one I'm holding up here. And of course, the beautiful lessons about Kimoyo, brother Kofi Pasai. And there's some other books that I have somewhere. I think the other one is Philly. And then,
Yeah, we got a lot of books.
The, what SARS-CoV2 or COVID-2 taught me, brother Ini-Herit, Shawn P. And this is the text. And so make sure that y'all go out and get your copy of the text. And I'll let you have the last word. What is it that, you would want us to get from this text? And, what was on your mind that we didn't get to address and mention? And I'll give you the floor.
I just want everybody to be able to arm themselves with the right information, not only for yourself, but because you have an immediate impact in your household and among your family members. And as African Americans, we struggle with how to recognize how to do proper research. We're hung up on social media, 140 characters or TikTok videos and things of that nature. And this misinformation has caused us to lose lives that we could have saved. And I know that there's many people out there that have transitioned, 759,000 families out there that would wish that if they knew this vaccine prevented death, that they would get vaccinated. And they would do it in a hurry. There's people on their deathbeds wishing that they actually can get it, who sat there and didn't believe this was even a real thing. So we want to make the reason that I wrote this is to answer questions for us to help advance this conversation in our households, but also arm us so that we can make informed decisions for our households and everybody could learn from that. And that pretty much, the summary of it all. And I dedicated, like I said earlier, a whole chapter to disinformation and misinformation and where it stems from, because there's a lot of people that have parroted a lot of these claims and still parrot a lot of these claims. And we need to know those origins, and then we need to know the truth from the falsehoods. And I don't expect a lot of people to spend as much time as we did years researching and the last couple of years following this whole pandemic. I know most people don't have that time. So I try to dedicate as much as my time uh, in into this work to make sure that we would be able to better serve ourselves and our communities with a text like this. And hopefully you enjoy it, you learn from it. It's a teaching tool for many. I've gotten good feedback. I've gotten feedback from doctors. I've gotten feedback from when I say doctors, I'm talking about, that's in the field, front line in the fights, microbiologists, right? Who's entrenched in the subject matter and
That's the white man
appreciates a piece of
science.
work. Yeah, that's white man. but that's what I want people to get from it. I don't want us to continue to handicap ourselves in the middle of a pandemic, and we're subject for losing our lives frontline first because we don't have the tools, and I don't want us following in the wrong footsteps. So that's pretty much it on my end. And I thank you, Asar, for having me. I thank the pseudo killers. I thank my Kofi Paisai research team, which you also can find me on YouTube, the Mossy Warrior Clan, all the supporting family members. You know what I'm saying? That all contributed in some way, shape, or form to help get me to the point to where I could do something like this in the first place. Of course, you see Unc popping up in the chat, of course, and he's on. It looked like he on his best behavior. He ain't said nothing ignorant in a minute. So, brother Unc for helping forefront this whole topic of conversation, and I just hope that people just will receive it the way it's intended to be received, and that we begin to start looking at these things as these health issues and these viruses and pandemics and vaccines and the whole nine as a means of a way of us properly educating ourselves and doing things. Listen, I'm not telling you to put down your herbs. I'm not telling you to not take your elderberries. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm specifically saying here is that these things don't cause an immune response against a novel virus. They don't. However, those things can help us strengthen our immune system, right? So that we can live a little bit better, protect ourselves, be a little bit healthier in our endeavors. But in no way, shape, or form is this are we supposed to be using these things to replace a vaccine. I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to end up catching this virus, being around someone that's immunocompromised or a little bit older or more susceptible to have a more severe response, and they contract it and you lose them. And that's all I'm gonna say about that.
All right. And we appreciate you for your scholarly contribution and your ability to break down and translate these very scientific and complex issues in a manner in which the common person can understand. And so I can't wait. I recently got my copy, so I haven't dived deep into it just yet. I've read a few pages, but I can't wait to get through it and see what I can learn from this text. And y'all always have my support over here. So with that said, I appreciate each and every one of you for listening live, and then of course those of you who are catching the archives. I will be having a show on Sunday. I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but I will be here Sunday. What date is that? The 14th, something like that. So I'll let y'all know
Yeah, 14.
the closer I get to that particular time. But unlike brother Shawn, I'm all over the social media space. And so you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, of course, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. But you can also catch me on TikTok. So I need to update this image here. And with that said, y'all have a blessed weekend. Y'all continue to stay safe. Continue, of course, to use your sanitizers and wear your mask. And of course, we recommend, at least on this channel, that you get the vaccines to aid in the protection of you and your family. And so that's what we're about here, because of course we can't fight the power if you're not here. So with that said, y'all have a blessed night, and I will see y'all later. Peace.